So basically, if you're looking at, of course, is the lower Wallowa Valley, and then the Wallowa Fault, the fault that uplifts the mountains, runs along the edge of the Wallowa Mountains there. And the Wastine River is the river that you see where all the cottonwoods are. And the Wallowa River basically comes down along here, and the confluence is right where those cottonwoods meet, in the big grove of cottonwoods. And so I think Rich and Dave have been correct in thinking that the landscape that we see in front of us, the lower Wallowa Valley, was a braided river channel system. It would have flooded probably pretty full of water in years when there was a lot of flooding. There would have been a lot of old abandoned channels and abandoned meander lakes. There would have been places where there were marshes. There would have been places where there were plenty of habitat for ducks and habitat for deer and elk, otters, beaver. It would have been a very rich landscape. There would have been, I would be pretty sure, camas. There would have been tules, cattails, lots of opportunities for digging roots on the higher ground, particularly cows. So the story, and Rich, do you want to come over here and tell the story that Dave told a little bit more about the...
Well, this is really, the way Dave Weaver tells this story, this is really the first meeting place. And the first place where the people came in, and that right as you came out of the canyon, that mouth of the canyon, to your left was Smith Mountain. There were the hot springs along that mountain, and there were some early homesteads there, and then there were early homesteads here, and there were squatters here. And David surmises these little, they would have taken the flat land here and then up into the hills, so they would have built in these little draws, okay? And the Findlay affair is up which one, Ellen? Do you remember? That one?
It's up so there's a big draw up there, and then there's a smaller one down here. So
yeah.
It would be the smaller of those two draws up there.
And that's where the famous incident of the horse and the McCall and the killing that didn't get solved. Okay, so David, again, this is his conjecture, but it makes a lot of sense. And that map you have, he codes them. He said, I coded it wrong. I coded it by the ownership. I should have coded it by the date of settlement. Because his feeling, and Roger really confirmed this, once you had horses, you had this whole valley. You had this whole valley. And when you came here, at times of the year, you would have used this whole valley. But as people built fences, right? Then you got squeezed, and you came back next year, and there was a fence where you were last year. And so he says that what the settlers called Indiantown was not an Indian invention, it was a settler invention, as they squeezed you into a smaller and smaller space. In Phil Kashkash's book, he calls the actual confluence that you can get to down there the place for spearfishing. Isn't that right, Roger? The place of spearfishing?
Yeah.
And it also had that name of the right angles coming together. So that was right there in the middle of those trees. So all of this land there were settlements, but it all would have been used by your people prior to that. And there would have been marshes, and there would have been dry spots and at different times of the year. But obviously that fishing spot is right over there.
Yeah. It would have been a great place for salmon rearing, young salmon rearing, for Chinook and for coho.
Yeah.
So it's the small channels that were put in at the small channels that were put in down at the homeland are basically kind of a memory of those small channels that would have gone through this land here. There's a lot of faults that cut through this valley, so small river channels might have followed those. We could probably find a lot of those channels using a technology called LIDAR that looks at it actually looks at the surface below the surface, so to speak. So even if you bulldoze something, that remnant of the old channel is still there.
Find the pit houses too with LIDAR.
Yeah.
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 Exactly.
When we first started looking for longhouse sites here,
Yeah.
this was one of the sites.
Oh wow.